Okay, at this time, we'll bring the December 22nd, 2025 City Council work session to order. Item 1, pension increase discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, we have Mr. Lashinsky with us here this evening to kind of discuss where the pension is currently at, and every year we kind of have this discussion about a possible increase, and that's a decision that you guys get to make. So we have this on the work session this evening, have it on the consent agenda for the regular agenda. So if you want to make any decision on that, we'll have that available for this evening's decision. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lashinsky.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for giving the opportunity to discuss this evening. I will take over the screen. I have a short PowerPoint presentation. It's probably the same one most of you have seen in the past. Just to give a little update on where we are at. So basically, as far as the fire pension goes, what we're going to cover is an overview of the pension plan, our pension goals, the reason for a pension, the current status. We'll talk about city contributions for 2025 and beyond. I guess that would be 2026 and beyond. Pension levels and our request. So just the overview is the pension's in place to provide monetary benefit to members who have met the requirements, which is at least 5 years of service and being the age of 50. Currently, as of last year, we moved our investments over to PARA. So the plan is managed by PARA and with oversight by the state. The goals are, as always, to use that pension as a recruitment and retention tool. We want to maintain a fully funded pension plan. We want to provide retirees with accurate and timely payments. We want to always monitor these investment performances, and we want to communicate effectively with our members and with the council. So if we talk about short-term goals, we've met our short-term goals consistently, and that's maintaining a self-sufficient 100% funded plan. And the long-term goal is a payout of $200,000 after 20 years of service, which would be $10,000 per year of service, which we're currently at $8,000. So that's just a long-term goal. There's no time frame we're looking for that. So when we talk about retention and why the pension's important, so we have 21 members of our department that are currently vested, which means they've been on our department for at least 5 years, which is 64% of the members of our department. And that includes 339 years of experience, which is it's a pretty impressive 94% of the total experience of our department are currently vested, including 100% of our department officers. It takes roughly 3 years for a new recruit to be fully trained and experienced enough to operate confidently in emergency situations. Of course, everybody's a little different. Some people are up to speed within 1 year. Some people, it takes the full 3 years. But anyway, it takes time is the general thing here. So if we look at where does our revenue come from for the Relief Association for 2025, year to date, our revenue sources total $316,000, which 36% of that comes from state aid, which is the 2% money from the insurance companies. The city contribution of $14,000 makes up 4%. Other and miscellaneous is 1%, so that amount is a supplemental benefit that the state pays in the amount of $1,000 per pension paid the previous year. That helps cover taxes for those folks that receive a pension. And then investment earnings consistently over the years makes up the majority of our revenues on a given year. So year to date, I just updated these numbers this morning, $187,562 for that. Where does the money go? So the money is in this fund specifically for only 2 things. Number 1, administration, which after moving to PARA dropped incredibly from thousands of dollars per year down to under $2,000 a year. And then pensions paid out, which varies. Some years it's 0, like this current year, 2025, we haven't paid out any pensions. Last year it happened to be $226,000 for 1 deferred member and 1 member that had just retired. If we look over the years of where our incomes are coming from as far as state aid and municipal aid, you can see that the state aid is increasing. every single year, and we're very happy that the municipal voluntary contribution has been very stable and steady, which helps a lot. If we look at the history of our results too, this chart is always one that I really like to point out. So we always want our assets to be higher than our liabilities. So you can see we have a very long track record of that happening, except for the big crash back in 2008. So when that happened, we had 2 years where we were below fully funded. But basically, we always want to have a cushion. We want the black line to be higher than the red line, and we want it to be in an amount that we all feel comfortable that we're going to be fully funded. So all of this data is coming from verifiable sources, the PARA annual funding report and the report from the state auditor's office, which are available online for anybody in the public to see. So what happens is once a year we get a report from PARA that tells us where we're at. It tells us where they think that we'll be at the end of the year, and then it also indicates our funding ratio and whether there should be a mandatory municipal contribution to make sure that we're fully funded. So where we're at this year is we're 109% funded, which means there would be no mandatory contribution. And then what they do is they throw together, I don't know where they come up with the numbers, but a $100 increase, a $200 increase, and a $1,000 increase. I didn't ask for those numbers. That's just what they provide to every single city that is on the plan. We do things a little differently. What we do is we take those numbers and we look at where we're at for rate of return year to date. We look at how many members that we're thinking that we're going to have next year, because that does have an impact on what the liability would be. So for example, the graph that I'm showing you at the top here, the +4 is indicating we're assuming we'll have 4 additional members next year versus what we had this year. So the numbers that PARA provided here is assuming that we're going to have the same number of members that we had last year the next year. So we are currently at +4 members. We've been able to bring on 4 additional members this year, so we are fully expecting to be at +4 next year. The rate of return, which has been increasing, is currently at 7.06%, which brings us, if we were to increase the pension to $8,400 per year, that still would leave us at 104% funded, which still leaves us a cushion in case there is a market correction or the market changes in a way that we don't expect it to. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides here, but we feel very confident, especially with it being so late in the year, that we're going to end fully funded on December 31st, which is when all the calculations start over. So next year we would get another report from PARA sometime in the end of July that will talk about what happened in calendar year 2025 and what they would expect to happen throughout 2026. So let's just say that there was a market correction and the stock market went down drastically. The way that it would work is there would be no mandatory contribution no matter what in 2026. If the report came out in 2026 that there was a correction, the mandatory contribution would take place in 2027 if that was the case. So if we look at our rate of return, so when we started this project back in July when we first received the report from PARA, it didn't look like it was a good time to ask for a benefit increase because the rate of return at that time was not good. And as the year has progressed, you can see that the rate of return has increased pretty steadily. And we're looking at the statement dates are down at the bottom. So as of the end of October, I'm sorry, at the end of November, the current rate of return is over 7%. And now the red line on there is indicating the rate of return that PARA allows us to assume. So that works out well for our projections, but it also works out well for the council and for the city in the case there is a market correction and we go into an underfunded situation, because the way that it works is when we're calculating out the the projection of where we're going to end at the end of the year, we can use the 6% as an assumed rate of return that we will receive. So no matter what the situation is in the market, the city and the pension fund always gets to assume a 6% rate of return. So another thing that I want to point out, and this is something that we've talked about here, is when we talk about the pension fund, we really have to think that this is not like the stock market. Even though the money is invested in the stock market, it is not the same as somebody's 401k or somebody's personal stock portfolio. It is just a tool that the state of Minnesota uses to manage the funds in the pension. And the funds are invested in a very safe and very conservative manner. So if you look at where the funds are invested, first of all, volunteer fire departments only have 6 different choices on where that money can be invested. And they are all safe funds. You can see the rate of returns over long term are steady. You don't see this wild ups and downs like you would if you're investing in Google or Tesla or any of the other volatile stocks out there. So we're not going to make giant numbers, but we're also not going to lose giant numbers because all of the funds are in very stable funds. And what you see in blue on the left-hand side is the percentage of where our funds are into which available options within the State Board of Investments. So just wanted to point out that in addition to the community, the services that we provide to the community, responding to calls and maintaining equipment and going to training, the East Bethel Fire Department is also involved with a lot of other things within our community. So there's a safety prevention or a fire safety program at the local schools that takes place every year. There is the Heart Safe program where we teach citizens about AED use and how to do CPR. We are still the charter organization for a Cub Scout pack, which is 387. We do have the Fire Auxiliary, which does a lot of amazing things in our community, like roadside cleanup. They provide kits for folks that have been displaced at their homes, and they make a large donation to NACE every year. We do provide first aid training for scouts, local BMX group. We did it recently at Station 1 for the scout group that Ms. Urkel is involved with. We do have a retirees monthly gathering. We support various organizations throughout our community, including NACE. We do a Santa Parade every year where we do some food shelf collection as well. So what we are requesting as our fund does support an increase of $400 per year service with the new benefit of $8,400 per year service starting on January 1st in 2026. So just as a summary, in 2025 we did maintain our goal of 100% funded, and to help maintain this goal we just need healthy investments, prudent and competitive benefit levels, consistent city contributions, and maintaining an outstanding relationship between the members and the city. So I guess I will at this point open it up for any questions, and I can go back to any of the slides that you'd like to ask questions about or have more information from me provided to you.
I just want to clarify, this increase is coming from the investments, not from taxpayers, correct?
That's
That's
correct.
what I thought. I also have a question on that 187,000 that's there somewhere.
This one.
Is that what comes in, is that an annual figure and it accumulates, or is that something that's slowly accumulates to get to that number?
Yep, so that's that just happens to be the investment earnings that we've made year to date. So this picture right here is actually at the bottom of the slide here. That is our actual, from our portfolio, that's the rate of return this year. So that 7.06% is where this $187,562 came from. So this is throughout the entire year. So every month we get a statement, and that's the money grows and grows and grows, and that's where we are at as of the last statement, which we received on at the last day of November.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and you're correct. I just did want to reiterate that this, in theory, has no fiscal impact on the city because the money is in a fund specifically to pay out pensions to the firefighters.
And if you had to pay out 4 firefighters in 1 year and it became under, then they would have to, what was the word you used? Mandatory, don't,
Yeah, mandatory
Contribution.
contribution. So with that said though, it would never happen for a retirement. So the fund is fully funded specifically to pay out our firefighters. So for example, our current balance as of right now today, I'm using rough numbers, but we're at $2.9 million. So if you look
Okay.
at the liability that we have today, it's $2.6 million. So let's just say that everybody quit today, which would make for a very interesting duty week for me. We would still have $300,000 in the pot to pay out pensions. Now, with that said, when they calculate our assumed liability, they're assuming everybody's going to be here for 20 years. So let's take a firefighter that's been here for 5 years. Their pension for 5 years times $8,000 today would be $40,000, but they're only 40% vested. So the real amount that we're liable is $16,000. So today, if everybody quit, we would literally pay out $2.1 million, and we have $2.9 million in the fund, which would be $800,000 left over. And I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but I've also been doing this for a long time. So
Got it.
I'm very comfortable with the numbers. I don't know, Artie, how long
Good
have I,
job.
15 years, 16 years?
Yeah.
So,
Good job, thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions for Troy? Comments?
Yeah, you're doing one heck of a job with this.
Well, thank you.
really are.
All right, thank you, Troy.
All right. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Do we want to have a consensus to add this to the meeting agenda then?
It's on there.
Mr.
It's
Mayor
on
and
there.
Council, it is on the agenda this evening already, so you can
It was
up or
on-
down vote at that point, yep,
Okay, I know it was on it, but
Yeah, it's on the rail.
it was,
in the consent agenda.
yeah, I think in the description it was depending on the results of the work meeting.
Yep.
So, okay, very good.
All right, moving on. Item 2, prime advertising and design.
Mr. Mayor and Council, we had a council member bring forward a kind of a concern with the quality of our newsletter and timeliness and some other things. And so we started looking into what it takes to produce a newsletter and the amount of time and quite honestly, staff is well, with some of the staff turnover and responsibilities kind of being shared amongst everyone, I think it's kind of being pushed to a back burner a little bit. But I wanted to, what I have in front of you here is Prime Advertising and Design. They are a firm that specifically do newsletters for cities. And I've got just it gives you a visual here of some of the newsletters that they do. So essentially, they'll do the design. We would send them the content, and they would place it in there. They would send it back to us to review it and make sure it's accurate. And then they would take care of sending it off to the printer, having it printed, sending it off to the post office, having it delivered based on the list that we provide. Currently, right now, we do the design in-house. We are not designers, and I compliment those that do the work and try to do the work, but it's a, to be a graphic designer is a discipline that people earn rightfully. And so we do provide some of the content. A lot of our department heads, of course, we go around and say, okay, what's the hot issues that you want to have addressed in newsletter? Sometimes council says we would like to see something in newsletter. So, and many times council members, I know Councilmember Miller has submitted articles as well for newsletters. And then we try and fit it into there and try and get it out. This would help simplify the matter, but it does come at a cost. I will go back here to this page here. So essentially right now, our last newsletter was $3,444. And if I'm adding this up correctly, it would be about a $10,000 increase over the year. So we have 4 different publications that we send out in a given year, quarterly, and it'd be about $2,500 difference for that to essentially turn it over to a service that that has done a good job. I think I know, you look at some of those communities in there, Anoka and others that have used the service. People are very happy with it, and kind of helps to simplify some of that work that is right now falling on staff that might not be trained necessarily to do it, but have been trying to pitch in to get something done over the last few years. But at any rate, I wanted to just bring this to council, get your feedback on it in a work session. If it's something that you would like to proceed with, we can start it up in January here and kind of get them online, get them designing something, such as the front of the, on my cursor here again, such as the, there's different views that you can go with. Different cities have different ways of presenting, whether they have a certain color they want to focus on or a certain theme. They can provide stock photography. If we would like that, if we have our own photography, you see Anoka here as a picture of their bridge. If we have our own photography, we can utilize that as well. And I think it just kind of brings it up to a different level, a new level of professionalism. There's a cost to it though, and so that's why I want to bring it forward and see if that's something you guys want to consider moving forward with.
Personally, I think it's a great idea. I think the professionalism and the way the city will come off to the residents will be much better. I think if they can be more timely than who we're using right now. And the last newsletter, I was so disappointed because we had these little tiny pictures of the senior events, and nobody could really tell who was who or what they were doing in those pictures. And why take the time to get pictures done and submitted if nobody can tell? And pictures tell stories, and we want more people to participate in community events. And if we don't have those stories, it's not going to resonate with our residents. So that's my opinion. I'd be willing to pay, an extra $10,000 to get the word out to the people on a regular basis in a professional manner. And I'm a cheap person too, so I don't like to spend money.
Would these newsletters be in color then versus black and white that we have been doing?
Yeah, so I would need to double check on how much of it would be color. It may just be the front page, maybe a little bit color inside there. Generally speaking, a lot of the presses today that are used will print anything you want. If you want black and white, it's a 4-color process that prints a black and white. So you might as well take advantage of color essentially at that point. And it depends on how you submit the print file, the print ready file. If it's color, you're getting color coming out, So I think kind of Councilmember Urkel's point, we're starting to get a lot of calls about development and property and things of this nature. I think there's multiple first impressions, obviously. But this is certainly one of them, that people can utilize to get that first impression of the city, and I think it's a positive thing if you'd like to proceed with it. But.
Well, if I could add my 2 cents here, I think communicating with our residents, a lot of our residents are used to getting a newsletter and one that's in depth with what's happening. And we've gotten away from that a little bit. And I think it's very important that we stay on top of not only what's going on here, but inform everybody. Not everybody goes online, not everybody watches these meetings, happy for the people who do. But reality is a lot of people look forward to it. And when they don't get it,
We hear
they
about
feel like, we're ignoring them or anything like that. So I'm for this. I'm curious. I've seen Champlain's, and Champlain's has had advertising in it. Now, do they contact advertisers too in our city, or, to help offset this?
I was thinking that too.
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that yet. We would certainly supply them with businesses that want to, have them design something for an ad for them. They may have other, reach in terms of people that contact Prime to say, hey, what do you have in an area, this area for advertising?
Because I know Carrie's been working on a lot of ads for businesses, and she's been basically doing them herself.
Right.
If
Very
they're a
time-consuming.
professional organization, I mean,
Right.
I think that would really be a positive for us also.
It's very time consuming when someone submits a Adobe Illustrator file and you don't have that program to operate with, and you're trying to convert it and it comes out grainy. And I'll be honest with you, we're getting a significantly more public data requests coming in that Carrie is involved with, and that's a time sensitive matter that has to be dealt with. So these type of things, while they're on the burner, they're not on the front burner, right, in terms of importance. And so I understand some of the frustration, and we're, staff is somewhat caught, trying to respond to everything that we can as soon as possible. And it would be nice to have a service that can handle it, and, produce something professionally, and that has experience in doing it. They're not, they're not fly by night. They've been around for a while.
I know I agree with Tim and Suzanne, because the last newsletter that came out, it's like, I looked at it and I'm like, sorry, but this isn't what we've had before in the past. Something like this is really important to residents, especially that don't go on the computer, and they look forward to this, and it gives them information about what's going on in our city. So I'm for this as well.
Yeah, and it would be nice if we could get, eventually advertisers to help offset the cost, because I know a lot of people would be willing just to spend $100 to put a business card in there. And I don't know if that would go through the city or the Prime, but but it's something we can research later.
Yep, definitely.
Because I think it's important too that we get it at least 4 times a year
Mm-hmm.
to keep the residents informed on what's happening, so they're not guessing or second hearing stuff that's not really going on. I think it's important.
Any other comments?
Well, if you could find out a couple of those answers about color and advertisers, and bring them back next month.
Okay.
All right. Well, agreement on it? Yep. Sounds good. Let's move to item 3, garbage hauler discussion.
Mr. Mayor and Council, at the last council meeting, I believe there was a person that came forward and indicated that they were interested in seeing if the city would look into kind of the program that that Ham Lake put into effect for garbage hauling. So I reached out to the city of Ham Lake. They were kind enough to send me their contract that they used for what they call Ham Lake Haulers, which is 2 different haulers that came together to provide a solution to that city. And again, part of this discussion kind of revolves around you've got I don't know, pick a number, 6 different companies out there, all driving on the same road. Depending on the number of the size of the neighborhood, you could have all 6 of these different providers driving down the road to get the garbage and then to pick up recycling. And there's concern about wear and tear to the road, and just kind of the, maybe the invasion of garbage trucks that happen throughout the week. But this is if you've got an opportunity to read this contract, this is what they've put into place. An interesting part on this is the city does have quite a bit of garbage that we pay for in our bills list, and in this portion, if I can find it real quick, it says 2.6 years, contractor shall at no additional cost the city provide weekly pickup of refuse at 7 locations, and they spell them out. You know, we could certainly have a similar type of scenario conditioned on a contract such as this if you chose to go that route. I think it, you know, reading through this, I think it covers just about everything that would be of concern. But the process that we would need to undergo with this is to essentially send out an RFP and have haulers try and bid on the work. And the goal, of course, is to keep some of the costs down. I think in Ham Lake, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I think it's around $17 or something for their garbage monthly basis, and that can vary widely. And I think I paid 25 or something in Ramsey, but
I
not
pay
that
80.
not that 25 is bad, but you know. But at any rate, it could be an opportunity for, depending on who responds back to an RFP, could be some cost savings for residents. I think the flip side of that discussion is that freedom to to select a provider of your choosing, you know, and some people want to have that flexibility. From what I understand, it's not really been a huge pushback in Ham Lake, but I think overall people in Ham Lake are very happy with the services they're getting, and this can be, you know, reevaluated every term that comes up, whether it's a year or however long you want to make the term of the contract. But so, anyways, this is before you in terms of discussion. Again, something we can get out first part of the year in terms of an RFP. Covers just about everything.
Yeah, I know their pricing goes on what gallon container you have. They have 3 different sizes listed in their site here. And in 25, they have a 30 to 38, that's $13.35 a month. A 60 to 76 gallon is $19.18 a month. And then the bigger one, 77 to 90 gallons, $21.92. So, I mean, I think people would be satisfied if we did it, as long as they're paying less than what they are now.
Do you know what 2 companies came together for Ham Lake to do it?
It was ACE and
Waste management.
Waste Management, which may be the owner of Waste. I'm not sure
Yeah.
of ACE. I think they somebody purchased somebody along the way there. But you know, part of the argument is start and stop of vehicles and wear and tear on roads, and that's quite honestly that's a function of weight. So if you have one vehicle that's overloaded starting and stopping, you've got a lot of damage potentially being done. If you have 6 vehicles that are partially full starting and stopping, you may have less damage. So that argument, while it's commonly used, I don't know that it always applies, but I do understand that, you know, if you've got you know, a neighborhood and there's 6 haulers in that neighborhood, you got trucks all day long, you know, coming through there. And if you look at it from a public safety standpoint, I think, you know, kids playing in the streets and shouldn't be, but I think generally you find them there. You want to try and limit some of that traffic. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I know in my neighborhood, 5 days a week, I got garbage trucks coming through my neighborhood.
Yep.
So,
Oh, I can see the advantages of some of this, and I could envision having two suppliers similar to Ham Lake. That way that there'd still be some freedom of choice, and I would like to keep one of those local, no matter what company. If that's a possibility, I'd like to help support local businesses.
so,
So I know Ace is nationwide, and
yeah, just to clarify, these two haulers came together as a partnership to provide the service. So you get,
Okay.
you don't have a choice of one or the other, but you know, they decided to work together as opposed to compete against each other. But
This really could be a win-win, not only for our residents for pricing, but for long-term maintenance on our roads. I think that was mentioned, we have new roads coming in and have gone in. These trucks can do some damage, even though I live on a dirt road with a cul-de-sac. Garbage week is pretty rough, especially if it rains the night before. And I ride bike, and it's tough to ride once in a while when you have to go over all these different gullies and, you know, it looks like burnout basically in there. But this was a smart move that Ham Lake made. It really was, you know, for long-term savings on their maintenance and for the residents. So if we could throw something like this together, I'm all for it. And thank you for that suggestion at the last meeting. It's a big one.
I think it's a good idea too, but we should probably set either a yearly or every 2 years and set it out for an RSP, just to keep the costs, so they can compete against each other.
I could see every 2 years.
Are we gonna have any problems with pushback from the carriers because we allow so many in right now?
you know, I would, Mr. Mayor and Council, to answer that question, I would say earlier on you would have. I think this is becoming a common kind of area that cities are looking into now, more common than it was before.
I think St. Francis has two haulers too.
Yeah, I think that that a lot of the haulers actually would do mail campaigns, you know. It became a political hot potato for a few years there, but I think now they've kind of figured out that, well, if we can get our foot in the door in certain areas and we don't have to drive clear across, you know, the state to service a couple accounts, that we're probably saving some money in the long run. I'm not sure. I'm not a garbage hauler, but it would make sense to me that, you know, if you can focus your market, that you may not have as much cost. These trucks, I don't think, are inexpensive.
No.
Well, I'm going to put my 2 cents in because I am not for this. I don't think it's the government's job to get into garbage hauling. I think it's just adding one more thing that the city's going to have to monitor, and the city is already complaining that they have too much going on, too many things. And I don't think it's our job to be picking winners and choosers of businesses. I think I'm all for the free market and letting people decide. We have a lot of residents who, through just monitoring social media, I have heard they hate this company, they hate that company, they don't like the owner of this company, they don't, and lo and behold, the city will pick a company that somebody hates, and all those people who hate that company are going to be up in arms. So you can see, I can see the future on that whole issue. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand it, because in years past, there have been brief discussions about this, and there are very strong views on one side and the other.
And people have come before the public forum complaining. It's when this topic came up, and I guarantee you put it on the agenda, we will have people.
Well, what does it cost to get an RFP and put together just to look? Not to commit to it, but just to
Yeah.
see what could be done.
Yeah, I think we'll do a request for quote. It's a little less legalistic at that point. RFPs, you have to have a good reason why you don't select one of the one of the people that submits.
Okay.
RFQs kind of give you just those numbers that you're looking for. We can certainly do that. We can model it after this, certainly, if that seems to work for them. I don't know that we'd want to reinvent the wheel. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this can become a politically charged topic. There's no question about it. I don't know that it is a politically charged topic in Ham Lake. I think they would have shared that with us, like, wow, we took a beating trying to get this across the finish line. I didn't hear that, but that's not to say that there aren't more active voices on social media in East Bethel. But saving money is a positive thing too. I mean, people are all for that, so it's 6 1/2 dozen.
Well, this is why we have the public forum.
Right.
So if an idea comes up and if we can do it, we do it together. You know, we want to hear the bad along with the good. Last thing we're going to do is try and cause problems. So by the public communicating through the public forum about things that they don't like about certain companies helps us make a decision too. And that's what it's all about.
And the reality of it is, if you decided to go down this road and it's not working, you can always go back to the other way. It's I'm sure other people would love to bid on accounts that they had or whatever. I'm sure they'll have the information to market them, certainly. But I think that's probably in the front of these people's minds. If they get awarded a contract like this, they know they better perform, or it's going to be, people will be complaining, like you say, and it's not going to look good for renewal of contract. But yeah.
So, just to restate, we're not committed to this, we are just looking at it, so. So, please no torches at the next meeting. We're just looking.
Would this require an ordinance if we ever did proceed with?
I don't know that we have ordinances on this particularly.
Just city code?
Yeah. This would just be a contract that the
Okay.
city would have. I can check in the ordinance though.
All right, anything else? Hey, at this time, we'll close the work meeting.